Hi, everybody. My name is Susie Benson. So I am the Senior E-commerce Manager for Europe, Middle East, and Africa as part of our Fitbit division within Google. So Fitbit have amazing products that can really help your life in terms of looking at your fitness, your health, wellness, stress, heart health. So we are fantastic about giving a huge range of insights to people to be able to help make their life a healthier and to be able to make the world a healthier place. So we have a lot of products. We also have an amazing app to help you do that. But I'm not here today to talk to you about Fitbit. I'm here to talk to you about our site migration. So we did go through a site migration the very end of 2020, just before the start of last year. And there's a lot of learnings that we can take from it. So I think for me, in my career to date, that has been the third site migration that I've actually lived through. And I have seen time after time how SEO will have requirements put in right at the very end, or else they're looked at after the migration has happened. And I think something that I've really seen and learned is how important it is to have those SEO requirements built in at the start. And that is because just to be able to mitigate as much lost revenue as possible. So it's very important to be able to have SEO included right from the start and have everybody on board. So I hope that's the one takeaway that you'll have today. So a bit of background to Fitbit.com. We have sites globally across the world. So across LATAM, APAC, and of course, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We have 14 sites within EMEA. And I guess the background to this was that we moved from a custom hard-coded site that was developed by our co-founder, Eric Friedman. Great at the time, but obviously just didn't age after, we had it for about 15 years. So it was time for us to be able to move on to a new glossier platform. So we did move to a new CMS, content management system, and a new e-commerce platform. And it has made some amazing changes to how we process our consumers' orders, how we help with customer service, and general being able to look at your app, your profile, any kind of payments that you want to make on it. So we have come through some great strides. That's not to say that we have completed everything. I think something that people know when they work with digital transformation is that digital transformation continues on. So even if you go through a large site migration, any kind of new apps, there's always work to be done and it's always ever evolving. So it is something that we're absolutely looking at, and it is evolving. We're always making changes, and SEO for us right now is key because we didn't get enough in right at the start. So here's what we could see. Some key metrics post-migration is because we changed our UX for the site, it was a much nicer customer journey. We had better mobile optimization. And generally the journeys were just much nicer for consumers. You could find information better. So we did see a large jump in revenue after we made those changes to our site. We also saw over an increase of 100% in our conversion, as well as over an 80% increase in our add to cart, as well as over 80% in terms of our media return on investment. So we've had some amazing results from it. Again, we're continually optimizing areas of our site that we know can perform better, but generally we could see some strong improvements right from the get-go. However, what we did see was organic traffic had really decreased. So we saw between a 40% to 60% drop in our traffic from organic. And again, organic is so important for us because it's extremely cheap. Like it's free traffic that we're getting to our site. And people also love SEO results because they know that it's trusted. So it's not like someone can pay to be there. This is, the listings that are most relevant to your search. So even before I joined Google, we could tell, everyone knows how important organic search is to a company. And it's something that is always tricky when you're going through a site migration. So we did see that drop. And it is what we've seen similarly across other site migrations that I've worked on too before. So I worked on Lloyd's TSB when we moved to the TSB Bank news site in the UK. And Three, which is a telecommunications company across Western Europe. Similarly, we saw some initial drop in traffic, and that is again because of site migrations. So this is what I want to speak through, is how important it is to have UX and SEO. And UX and SEO essentially are combined. So people will look at user experience and come through with beautiful customer journeys, and they're very good for the consumer to have that. And I think SEO has become more and more linked with UX, and they will become more and more linked, that if you have a good site that has relevant content, that you have great customer journeys, and that you're able, we're giving customers what they want, and you're not kind of fooling them into come to your site by any means. You're not, there used to be a lot of issues, I suppose, with people doing, faking links or having backlinks, and finding ways to be able to help your site get crawled by Google in a way that would help your listings, but they actually weren't very UX friendly. So I think that's the big change that's happened over the last 10 years within SEO, is that they've really combined UX, and it will always become more and more so. I do want to be able to say here as well that I don't work as part of this SEO team within Google. They're a highly secretive team. I don't have any insight on those algorithms. But obviously we know across Google how important organic search is, and especially for Fitbit, Google Store, any of our other key sites as well. SEO is always really, really important, and no one, I think, has SEO nailed. So even within Google, there's always places to learn, and we don't get any additional insight to any other consumer or company. So here's what you can look at in terms of SEO best practice. I'm not going to go through all of these because these are kind of basic pillars of SEO that you can go through in your own time, not just from a site, but just page kind of content. So you want to have specific tailored content to your site that's ideally unique to you, so that they know that, I suppose, the Google crawlers know that your content is unique, so that you're not seeing this copied and pasted from elsewhere over and over again. It can be a bit of an issue, I suppose, if you are using a site that has multiple languages, multiple countries. So you have to be able to ensure you use canonicals and ensure that the relevant listings are happening on a per country basis. So that can be a bit tricky. Also ensuring that you have your titles, your meta descriptions, your headings, all those, best page attributes that you want to have in terms of SEO. You also need to have your images optimized. That's something that we really struggle with at the moment. We're going through a process to be able to optimize our images because it really drastically affects your page speed. And same with URL optimization. So if you have a URL that has, fitbit.com/495CS, if it has lingo that's not words that make sense, you'll be penalized for that. So you want to make sure that everything is helping your consumers understand where they are, and help them to navigate to the best place. And that leads me on to navigation and sitemaps as well. So again, having the content easily searchable from your consumers, seeing that they're able to find that content is really, really important, as well as creating sitemaps, which help you to show Google where your content is, and helps just to be able to crawl that. So it brings that up to a consumer in a better fashion. It's also important to look, at your internal links to make sure that you're showing where the relevant content is based. Again, that kind of comes back into the navigational aspects, and also from pages. So again, say if we're talking about a Fitbit Sense, which I have on my wrist here, if you go onto that product page, that we're able to talk about the fact that we have SPO2 ECG functionality that will then link out to that relevant content we have within our site. Also, something that's becoming more prevalent as well is voice search. We are seeing increases in that year on year. And that's why, again, everyone's moved away from historical looking at keywords to actually being able to say in lingo, I am looking, give me more information for Fitbit Sense. So you're able to have that kind of question and answer section, and being able to speak in vernacular so that people can find that content on your page. We also need help in terms of signaling your new site. So with that, you need to review all your domains and your subdomains, and applying the 301 redirects is probably the single most important thing that you're going to do as part of your site migration. This isn't necessarily even from an SEO perspective. This should be inbuilt for any site migration that you go through, to be able to just ensure that any consumers who've been going to a previous page are redirected to where the new page is. So again, it shows, the link between SEO and UX. So it's extremely important you get this right. I'm going to repeat that for emphasis to make sure that you're extremely thorough with that redirect mapping. It is the most crucial step of your migration. And search engines need to be told that the content has moved, not just from UX. And, say if you were to have sent out emails or any of your previous marketing activity, you need to be able to, if people go back to that they can find where your new content is. So you need to have that explicit change of address instruction. As well as that, all the link equity that you've taken on over the years and built up for your site will be lost unless you're able to kind of give that indicator that the page has moved to that new site. So take every URL, map it to a corresponding URL on your new site as best as you can. So I've given an existing format of how you would use that. So there's the existing URL in that box below, as well as where you are applying the new 301 redirect to. So again, it's showing the current URL and then the redirect inside as well. So every single URL should be able to be mapped. Now we do, and looking at our site, we have a huge amount of subdomains. Maybe some of that's not relevant anymore, but you need to ensure at a minimum that all of your priority URLs will be mapped over to the new site. And they need to be done in the spreadsheet format. As well as that, you need to be able to update all of your relevant canonical tags, which again flags that this is the content that you think is the most relevant to Google. As well as reviewing all the internal links on your site. So again, that they point to the new URLs. Finally, you need to review the robots.txt file. So that's just to make sure there's no sites, pages that are disallowed, so that you're saying you don't want to be crawled. So you want to make sure that there's no rules. You want all your content to be crawlable, and ensuring that you have the correct robots.txt rules present for your new site. Something else that's really important is your tracking and metrics, of course. So this is the only way that you'll be able to track your results. You need to be able to make sure that you've got the previous versions of all of your data and compare it to the new ones. So you need to set up tracking on a new site in a new Google Analytics profile, as well as keeping your old Google Analytics profile so that you can do that key comparison. So you need to ensure they're there for comparative purposes. As well as that, you need to review your analytics access for Google Analytics and Search Console, which Search Console is going to be extremely important. I'll talk to that in a little bit more detail, as well as any rank tracking platforms that you might have already. I've given some examples there of GetStat, SEO Monitor. SEMrush is also really good in that regard. Your PPC accounts, again, that's extremely useful in reviewing your Google ads, as well as any backlink data platforms, Ahrefs, which is again a super tool. And that will be able to help you track and analyze what's actually being monitored in your site. Ensure also that all of these have been audited. So you want to make sure it's all working perfectly, it's tracking. It's also worthwhile keeping for any of your paid activities a spreadsheet with your tracking codes in it, so that when this new site is launched and working, you can be sure that it's all been migrated over and tested in full. Search Console. So here's a very important checklist with the most important free tool that you will have to be able to look at your SEO, Search Console. So it's an extremely important part of any site migration. And again, it's really good for being able to help you figure out what's working, what's not working. You will be flagged any issues. If your site is changing the domain name, you need to set up a new property and use the change of address tool in the old website property. So that, again, flagging what is old and what is current, what you want to be crawled. You need to look at uploading your new XML sitemap destinations, test for any of those errors. If a domain change has taken place, you need to force the sitemap crawl on the legacy property to ensure fast redirect processing. If there is a new domain change or website consolidation has taken place, please update your new disavow file. So again, the disavow is to show what you would like not to be crawled. What's also really important, and a lot of people don't do, is the fetch as Google for every page template. So you'll have numerous different page templates, presumably across your new site. Fetch as Google. So that will just help to speed up the crawling of the content, so it's not taking so long to crawl every single time. It'll help in terms of caching, as well as checking your JavaScript rendering on core templates. That, again, is to make sure that all the content can be found and that it's not just, somewhere you have this amazing content, but it's not crawlable and consumers are not able to read it. Check the URL parameter setup to validate if it's correct as well. and identify whether anything needs to be changed. And something that's really, really important in Search Console too is the check usability function. So you can use that on key templates to validate all the pages are mobile friendly, which is of course very important and has been for some years. And something that is relevant also for international setup is to make sure that it's targeting the correct countries. Because what you can find is that suddenly, say the US side is the one that's coming back for listings in Slovakia, Netherlands, and that's not what you want. We have seen that happen. We had to kind of go through some changes to be able to show and flag to Google that we are showing the relevant country content. Now we go on to our paid channels. So what's really important as part of a site migration is aligning the shopping feed to your new site structure, amending all URLs as previously discussed. It's really important to actually pause all your campaigns during the launch. So you want to make sure that when you're testing your site migration and when your site migration goes live, you don't have any monetary spend running. So you don't want to be wasting money if there are severe site issues that you need to fix, if things aren't going to be crawlable, if any of your pages of your site don't work, because there's always going to be issues with any site migration. And that's why they tend to happen out of hours to minimize any consumer impact. So it'd be the same with all of your paid, is you pause those campaigns. You run your 404 error check when the site's live. Pending all of that is working and if there's no issues, you then can really increase your paid search. So we found that really, really helped us in the transitionary period where we did lose a lot of our organic site traffic, which is normal for any site migration. You might see that for a few days or a few months. Obviously, if you do things really, really well with how you manage your SEO and your site migration, you can really minimize the amount this is lost and really help to start growing your organic search immediately. But it's fantastic to be able to really bump up for any of your key terms, increase and try and get 100% visibility if you can, on paid search, just to help that transition and recoup any SEO losses. Finally, obviously that's very important as well, not just from any site migration is to test in stage. So you need to ensure things are working as expected and try and prevent any serious errors before they go live. And this review stage will help you flag any issues so that hopefully you can mitigate as much as possible any SEO losses too. I think Avinash Kaushik is someone that I think is amazing. He's a huge digital marketing and analytics evangelist, so I find listening to his content extremely useful. As part of this, it's like this quote is fantastic. To guarantee success, spend 95% of your time defining the problem and 5% of the time solving it. So again, you have all this data at your hands, so make sure that you're using various metrics. If you just look at one metric, like you could look at our conversion rate and say, fantastic, our conversion rate has gone through the roof. We are doing amazing work. And you could be doing fantastic, but you need to look at your various metrics to be able to find out where the issues are. And that's how we found out with organic, everything else was fab. We were seeing brilliant results across the board. And those results are the ones that you kind of can build up over time and can really have a big knock on your revenue. So it's ones to watch right away is all of your traffic channels. Like if you're seeing a large drop from one of your marketing channels, that's to be reviewed. You need to look at your add to cart, average order value, conversion rate. You can review the metrics that you would regularly use to track your website, and really go hard in after all of those to be able to make sure that you're picking up any issues as early as you can. We've also used some amazing tools to be able to help they crawl and go through site journeys, so that if there is a blockage or a page or an outage where, say, if one of the text boxes isn't working, it can be flagged as soon as possible. So that's also really, really useful. And I think monitoring your paid channels, particularly your conversion tracking during the stage, is also extremely important. Your conversions are what's driving the revenue for your business, so it is surely going to be extremely important. I can't answer your questions today, as we are in this virtual presentation. But what I would like is, if you do have any follow-on questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And my email address is susiebenson@google.com, and I'll provide that with Robert and the gang as part of Website Story. But thank you so much for taking the time to review this material, and I hope it's of interest and of help to you today. Thank you. Bye.